This is a daughter podcast where dads come to talk, think, and thrive with your hosts, Oscar and Blandon. Our mission is to cultivate a community of strong, mindful, and present fathers.
We want to curate honest conversations with all men, but especially those who have the honor of raising daughters.
Hey everyone, Oscar here at the Daughter Podcast, and Blandon on the other side over in Houston. How are you, Blandon?
Man, I'm doing outstanding. I'm doing great. So I just finished with my accountability workout.
All
I'm
right.
doing this 30 push-ups every day for 30 days. And if you miss a day, you're out. And so I've completed day 9, and we owe it all to our special guest co-host, Joey from
What's
the Fuel Hunt, man. Here we go. Here we go.
Joey Bowen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I am very, very grateful to be here. I'm so happy to see that you guys are doing this. As I said, like pre-show, it is needed. Like, us girl dads have to stick together. It's a forum that we need. So I'm pumped to be here. I'm ready to jam.
Well, if you all don't know, Blandon and I and Joey, but we have our Fuel Hunt shirt. So here's the deal, right? So with these shirts, and I want to just bring this out, Joey, because this is very important, right? So with these shirts, like I can't wear it without living what the shirt says, right? So I'm not going to turn around because I'm told that that's rude in a podcast. So I'm not going to show you the back of my shirt. You need to go to fuelhunt.com and go find the shirt. But
And buy it.
this shirt right here and his, right? It's growth to the grave. And that is literally the entire reason that Blandon and I started this podcast, is that we realize that we need this consistent growth as fathers in order to be the best we could possibly be for our daughters, so that our daughters can be the best that they can possibly be as they grow and do their lives. And so when I put on this shirt, I constantly know like I need to be growing. Like I need to figure out what I'm doing today to grow. And I say these things because Joey, man, I know we gave a lot of credit to Trevor because Trevor put us on blast. Without him knowing, he said, "Hey, we don't have this community.
Right.
Let's start this out."
Yep.
But in reality, Joey, you and your cousin Drew put that together in the Fuel Hunt Rise, and that really is what triggered a lot of things. We'll talk a little bit about those as we go. But Joey, man, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to talk to Blandon and I, but also all the listeners that have been daughtered. And we're going to get into your experience as a father of girls. But hey, man, tell us about yourself. Give us just a little glimpse of Joey, not the business side, because, that already makes us look bad as it is. But, and I only say that because if you all want to hear about Joey's business prowess, I mean, he's everywhere, like in a bunch of podcasts that I'm constantly listening to, that I'm constantly learning from. But for now, Mr. Bowen, can you give us the real Joey, the at-home Joey, the soft spot Joey with his girls? Who is that?
Yeah. So yes, I am co-founder of Fuel Hunt, but I describe myself, you said I'm everywhere, right? And I really do try to be everywhere for our community, for the Fuel Hunt community and my family. And that's like where it ends. It's addition, like by subtraction. So you asked me to introduce myself, tell you what I'm about. It's really 3 things. It's girl dad, growth agent, and I'm a grappler, meaning jujitsu. So
Yeah.
they're pretty much the 3 things. Like at this point in my life, I have let everything else fall away. Some things that I really loved, but I've let everything else fall away so that I can really focus in on those 3 things. And it's not by accident that I mentioned girl dad first. You go to my Instagram bio, it's there. You know what I mean? Girl dad, grappler, growth agent. Like, that's just what I am. Those 3 things. When I say growth agent, like I just want people to see and seize the power that's inside of them through hard work. I want them to grow. You talked about, growth to the grave and it being a rule of the few and something that the community lives by. I want to be a living, breathing example of that growth on a daily basis so I can shine a light for others, not just in my family, like my daughters, but in our community too.
Well, hey, man, I can tell you without a doubt, Fuel Hunt and in your message came through for me in a very vital time in my life. You guys came about around 2017, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Um, I had major back surgery in 2017. First time in my life that I had ever been really unable to do a lot of things in that recovery process. And I won't get into all of that because that is not really important. But what is important is what you and the community have done for so many is just like, and I know I'm not the only one. It goes without saying. So I'll thank you for some of us in the community that have benefited from the message that you have put out, which is bringing back hard work. Like that's just it seems to be nowhere to be found sometimes, right? And so I think it's so important, and it's so important now for Brandon and I because this whole thing is hard work,
Yes.
and we got to push that, right? And we know that
Yeah.
it's important because our girls are important. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the intro, which I really loved actually, because like I said, the businessman, I've heard many of that intro. I've not heard that one. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Today, everyone, we're going to get into being daughtered, right? Being daughtered, Joey being daughtered, and
Mhm.
share some of our experiences with him. He's going to share some experiences with us. And I think we're going to get a lot out of this. So I'm super excited.
Likewise.
Yeah. But first, before we get into all of that, Joey, I just want to go back, and we've been referencing our podcast that we had with Trevor, and I may still be a little salty. Okay, I just may be still a little salty because Oscar was slightly gatekeeping Fuel Hunt from me, right? He would drop it, and he'd say, "Oh, yeah, it's this social group I'm part of." And I'm like, okay, all right. Then once we started talking about the Girl Dad podcast, and he was talking about he was going through this mentorship program with you about business and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, all right. You're gonna share some more. And then Trevor was also a part of that. And then they still wouldn't share anything. And so I was like, okay, you know what? Listen, I'm going to find this information on my own. I really am. Because he would always wear the shirts, and it was almost like he was playing
Yeah.
with my face, right, bro? Like he was like not he was not giving me the information. But once I did the research on my own, I was absolutely blown away. Absolutely, by not just the apparel, but the community behind it, behind the mantras,
Mhm.
behind the genesis of your entire organization. And it really stuck out with me because, like we were talking about, it's the same thing that I tell my daughters. It takes
Mhm.
hard work to get anything accomplished. And anybody can complain, and you can have people who you commiserate with, and you can be miserable together, or you can strive to make something happen for yourself. And that's what I've been doing through this challenge. He's been keeping these challenges from me, bro. Like I could have been I could have been super
Listen,
fit. I could have been looking like y'all. But anyway, nevertheless,
we'll get you there.
I'm not
You will be. You will be.
I'm gonna move forward, and I'm just gonna say, man, I thank you for your dedication to this because it inspires girl dads like me to get out and not make excuses. I travel for a living, and this whole time I've been traveling, Oscar could tell you, and each and every day since I got this challenge, I set in my mind that I was going to complete it, regardless if I was at the hotel, if my plane got delayed. I was gonna do what I needed to do. And you know what? My girls ask me about it now. That's what's so important.
Right.
They asked me about the podcast,
Beautiful.
and they also asked me, "Hey, Daddy, did you do your push-ups? Did you work out?" Right? And that's what we want to show them: consistency
Exactly.
behind something. So that's my
Yeah.
rant. I just want to tell Joey, thank you. Tell Oscar, screw you for keeping it from me so long. And now Joey has officially inducted me into the few. So there we go.
I did. I inducted you into the few pre-show, but now, like during the show, I want to make it official. You are now inducted into the few.
Yes.
If I had a sword or something, I would, like knight you,
Done
man. You
me.
know what I mean? You're in. You're in. There's no better way to find the few and join the few than through the challenge, through
Yeah.
the 30 for 30 challenge, through like effort, and you get it. Like the few, they're just built different. And like they recognize it right away. Like Drew says it all the time. He's like, look, you get it or you don't.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
know, when you first see us, what we're about, you get it or you don't, and you got it. So, you know, you're one of the few. It's been the gatekeeping thing's been interesting, right? Because, you know, it's not the first time I've heard it. So, like, even this year, like, I've sent out some emails, basically, like, explaining, like, I get emails every week, and we won't go too far into this, but I get emails every week, like, Joey, I'm on your list. You know, I really want my first Fuel Hunt T-shirt, but like, I'm not, I'm just not where I want to be. I didn't reach my goal.
Yeah.
I'm looking for this win. I haven't achieved it yet. And I'm like, look, like it's about the work, not the win. So if you're here and you get it and you're willing to do the work, you're one of the few. You're not one of the few once you achieve your goal or get to your dream state or whatever. You're one of the few during the journey.
Man, that's amazing.
So I always tell them, like, you're missing out. Like, get in now. Like, get in while it's good, you know, on the journey. Because once you climb to the top of the mountain, it's not as fun as the climb,
Yeah.
you
That's
know.
right.
And that's just, it's one of those things, man. Like, people don't believe it, but it's the truth,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
When,
So,
when I have to say a couple things. So one, I wear 2 uniforms. My wife
Yeah.
says
Yes, he does.
uh-huh.
I wear my military uniform and I wear my Fuel Hunt uniform.
Yes.
Like
Which means so much to me, man.
I
Means
kid
so
you
much
not.
to me.
Like I could bring her in here, she would confirm. She's like, is that all you have? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what else do I need?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So well, Joey, on that point though, we may need to talk about a little bit more like dad gear, you know,
Yeah.
as we go forward. And just throw
We
it
can
out.
do that. We can do that. I got some things in the hopper, so we may be on the same page already.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other thing I wanted to say was that I was a little bit gatekeeping. And here's the reason.
He admits it. He admits it.
Here's the reason. All right. And I think Trevor and I think if Trevor was in here, he would probably agree, right? Because one, I started to research a lot more business stuff because I've been talking to Joey and he doesn't know it, but he's been one of my mentors so far,
Yes.
like beyond what I can imagine. So I can't thank you for that enough for that, Joey. So in business, you put it out, you don't say anything, you create curiosity, and then look, you went to go find it yourself. And I can tell you this, Glenn and I, so we've known each other for 17 years.
Yes.
Legitimately, a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, 17 years. If I went over and told Glenn, hey, go buy these shirts, you'll like them, he'd be like, I don't want to buy that.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
He knows it.
that's,
He's laughing because he knows it's true.
yeah. You have to, the investment starts with you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm that way too. If somebody tells me, I'm like, I'll check it out. Let me check it out. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
Let me run it through my, like, you know, my framework first just to see.
Yeah.
So I've been wearing my uniform every podcast.
Yes, you have.
You can look at every podcast. You can see there's
appreciate that,
some
man.
Fuel Hunt. There's always one on my head, and there's some Fuel Hunt somewhere else. They got my
Yeah.
water bottles just stickered to it. I mean, people know, but I don't say nothing because
He does not.
they're gonna ask, and then I can tell them, right?
Yeah.
And the other reason for gatekeeping, it's a little bit over on the girl side as well, the girl dad side as well. Like, I can tell you're a dad, but I don't know if you're a girl dad.
Yeah.
Let's just see how this goes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I was not in a conversation. I was kind of overhearing a conversation this weekend, and a girl dad complaining about these different things about being a girl dad, and I'm like, you don't get it, bro. Right?
No.
And listen, I try my best not to be judgmental because I don't know what they're going through. Like, it could be way more than just that, right? Like, I get that,
Mhm.
but I've made these little cards that have a little QR code, and I'll hand them out to, like, oh, you got a bunch of girls, like, grab that, right?
Love that.
But every so often I'm like, nah, I don't think you get it, right? And now I don't know that to be a fact, and that might be to a fault. But you know, the same thing with like Fuel Hunt, like you get it or you don't, right? Like everybody wants to be successful, but it takes so much to be successful, right? And that's what we're working to in our lives in general. Everybody's working towards that, but not everybody's willing to do those little things to get that. So
Yeah.
every so often, like, they'll see the shirt, they'll ask, and they'll be like, "You hunt?" I'm like, "Yes and yes." And then they'll be like, I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're good. Like,
Yeah,
all right, have a good day. We're moving on. So
yeah,
for me, the community's been just an entire blessing to be part of, to have accountability, to have these constant reminders that man, we're here to work. Like
yeah.
no matter who you are, we're here to work. So Landon gets it. I'm glad he got it without me bugging him about it, because odds are,
Here
I
we
know Blandon,
here
he
we
would have just been like, I'm not listening to you. I'm gonna go and wear some Gucci whatever.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
because he's a
Fire, shots
fashionable
fired.
guy. He's a fashionable
Yeah,
guy,
I
right?
respect
Like
that.
I'm
I
not.
respect that.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is fashionable. That's what I'm saying. This is
thank you.
fashionable,
Yeah,
comfortable, functional. Like I'm
there you
good.
Good.
I
go.
feel like I'm wearing this out. I can wear this when I'm traveling. I'm wearing this when I'm
Right.
working out. Like
Yeah,
this is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned consistency, and you made the parallel between like consistency and like that's what we're doing for our daughters, right? Like showing up for them consistently every day as our best self, growing consistently every day. And that's what we've done with You Will Hunt, man. Like, and what you're doing with the show here. Like you're showing up consistently every day to make progress, and that's what builds trust. It's no different in business and in fatherhood. We can't be, detached and not show up because that doesn't build the relationship. It destroys it with your daughters. So consistency is so key. And we're just showing up every day, me and the team of Pure One HQ to just, do what we do, the work,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. I'm pumped that there's so many ripple effects. Just today I was coming home, I took my daughters down Chinatown with my wife, and we were down around there for a little bit. I was coming back and I was driving down a parkway in Philly, and I passed somebody with a Pure One shirt on. And like that is hands down somebody I don't know, like just complete, a community member, but a stranger to me. I just drove by them and I'm like, that's what I love to see, because that means that our mission is advancing, our message is resonating. And I like to think in my mind, like to wonder when I see an eagle in the wild, I like to wonder like how that consistency and how our messaging and our mantras are showing up in their lives.
Yeah.
If they're young, I'm like, I wonder if they're in school and it's showing up there. If they're older and they're pushing a stroller, I'm like, I wonder how our messaging and our mantras are showing up in their home, as mothers or fathers. So it's super cool, and I can't thank yous enough. There's been a lot of flowers given out. I think as men, we don't get them often. So I give you guys some, like, I can't thank you both enough for believing in what we're doing, because it's uncommon nowadays
Yeah.
for believing in it, and purely understanding that we have pure intention to do good and bring everybody together for the right reasons. So thank you both.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, man. And everyone needs to go figure it out for themselves, and look at what you're putting out. So
Yeah.
with that said, though, we need to get into
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do
we
it.
need to get into Joey, the girl dad. And the first question we gotta get out there is, when were you daughtered first? When were you daughtered? And very importantly, what was that feeling knowing that you're about to be daughtered?
Mhm. So that was 2016. Uh, my oldest daughter is Everly. She's going to be turning 8. So it was 2016. So we did one of those like gender reveal things, for our first daughter. So we had a cake that we cut open, and there was either blue or pink icing inside. I can't recall exactly like how far into it we did the gender reveal. I think it was like a little later. Um, but I felt great, man. Like I know that a lot of men want boys, want sons, and that wasn't even really a thought in my mind. Like I was just so happy to be a father.
Mm.
Um, and that was my moment. It wasn't um, easy for us to conceive in the beginning. My wife is uh, almost 5 years older than me. Um, so it wasn't easy for us. So in that moment, like, it could have been triplets in there, and I would have just been inside of that cake. It could have been like also, I would have been like, let's go. Like I was just so happy. I was so pumped to be a dad.
Yeah.
I felt like it was my life was just beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I felt like it was a brand new chapter, and all the great stuff, like the successes that I've had and all the failures that I had before that, didn't even matter. It was like, this is like a whole new world and a whole new life for me. So I felt great. I felt great.
Wow, man, I love that because we've talked about us being daughtered in that feeling and the thought process that goes through there, right? And I love
Mhm.
how Blandon was like, I want a girl. I can't believe I'm having a girl. This is amazing. And it's just like this full positive thing. And some of us don't get that because we do it to ourselves, right? We suffer more in thought than we do in action, right? And so and something that you hit on really kind of triggered a thought. Your circumstance is different than like everybody's circumstance is different, but yours is different than what mine was, right? So
Mhm.
mine, like I was relatively young. It never even dawned on me that listen, I'm Mexican, brother. Like odds are, if I really looked at my wife hard, like she probably get pregnant, right? I know that's not cliche. That's not good to say. I'm going with the
I
stereotype
love
here,
it.
right?
I love it, man.
The
I love
science is
So just
with
follow
you.
the
The
stereotype here.
science is with you, sir.
I'm just saying that it never dawned on me that we wouldn't get pregnant. And that's something that until you said it right now, I've never really thought of. There's families out there that are just doing everything in their power to
Mhm.
become parents. And I'm over here like thinking all these not negative per se, but like all these worrisome things when we find out we have a kid. Instead of the joy of like, holy crap, I'm gonna be a dad.
Mhm.
I rob myself, and some of us rob ourselves of that joy that you just explained because of the lens that we're wearing at that moment.
per Perspective is power, right? And like, you don't have the perspective until you talk to other people that have been through it. Like what we went through twice, was very difficult. But there are, I have acquaintances and friends that have lost children at a young age, before they hit 10 years old and had to bury their children.
Oh,
I've worked in funeral homes. I've worked in churches, and I don't want to get too somber, but like I've seen a lot of things.
Yeah.
That coupled with what we went through, with our first child, and then before we had our second child, like I was just so pumped,
yeah,
you know what I mean, to be a dad, like straight up. And there were even some things in, you know, my childhood where I said, like, you know what? I'm gonna show up as a better father than I had. So, like, that was playing into this too. So, like, I had some people that were like, "Oh, man, you having a daughter, like, you better get to it. Like, you gotta get a boy out. Somebody's gotta carry on your name."
yeah,
And I'm like, that just never resonated with me. It just never did. And, I didn't go into all this with them, you know what I mean? I was just like, "Ah, yeah, ah, funny, smile, nod," but that never resonated with me. It just, you know. The second child we lost was a boy,
Mm,
and, you know, like, I mourn that, but
yeah.
I don't hold on to it. Like, I don't, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I believe things happen for a reason, and I believe I'm meant to be a girl dad.
Yeah.
And that's why I lead with it in my bios. Like,
yeah,
girl dad, straight up. That's what I am. Like, that's what my regardless of whatever happens with Fuel Hunt, the greatness that we will eventually achieve as Fuel Hunt, my legacy will be as a father,
Yeah.
specifically a girl dad.
right.
Yeah. That's super powerful to have that perspective in a world that so often only values your legacy if you have sons.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then you are being solidified because once you have multiple girls, then you're solidified as a girl dad. You're a girl dad if you have one girl or not, but then you have two or three or four, and then everyone is on your head about a legacy, a legacy, a legacy, right? Like, what
Yeah.
is your legacy? And me and Oscar talk about this a lot. I talk about this with other girl dads and just other fathers in general. But those precious little girls, they are my legacy. How I parent them will carry on for generations because how my grandfather loved my mother has
Mhm.
has impressed upon me so much,
Yep.
and that feeling that he gave her, that she was able to give me, that now I'm able to
Yep.
give my girls, is going to trickle down and
Yep.
ripple down to generations, you know?
Yeah, it's that ripple effect, you know? That ripple effect. Look, it's not like I get the whole thing with carrying on your name, but like, look, it ain't medieval times, bro. Like, we're not, like, we're not
Right,
trying to carry on the bloodline so
yeah,
that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it ain't medieval times, bro. Like, feudal
right,
system's over. So, like,
right.
it's outdated thinking, man,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah, yeah.
And we had a conversation last week with one of our guests, um, where that mindset of raising a boy and having this bloodline or this name continue, um, we you know, and I mentioned this before, like we're biased, right? I'm biased, and I'm
Yeah.
good with it.
Yeah.
But even with the bias, like they they as in fathers of boys have an important job. And in us as father of girls, we want them to do their job right.
Yes.
Right? We want them to raise those good boys. We want them to raise good men that treat our daughters the way they deserve to be treated. And so again, bias or not, that's huge. And what we're doing for our daughters plays 100% into that,
Mhm.
because the father that I am to my girls will inevitably affect the man that comes into their life. And that in itself will affect how she as a woman. And so
Mhm.
our job as a father of daughters, especially nowadays, I just can't see a more important job.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Like my mother had me young, single mother, and her strength is what I want my daughters to have. You know what I mean? Because, you know, weak and strong doesn't make strong. Strong and strong makes strong, right?
Right.
Is basic
Right.
principles.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. The job that we have is critical, not just to make sure that our girls are strong, confident, independent, but later on in life that a man steps into their lives that has the same qualities so
Right.
that they can, if they choose, right, have children and strengthen society. So
Right.
I don't know, I was gonna say selfishly, but I don't know if it's so much selfish because it's more service than anything. Like, I look at the job that I'm doing at home. I told you I do 3 things, right? It's like family, fuel hunt, and jujitsu, right? The family and the fuel hunt thing, like, you know, I'm working with my wife to raise strong, independent, confident, curious daughters, right? And then on the fuel hunt side, that's when I can have the same type of impact on young men,
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Growing up, um, and even the parents of kids, of boys, So, like, I'm trying to get at it from both angles, just to inevitably make a smarter, stronger society for everybody. I'm
That's a
with you,
great
man.
point. I never thought of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
the community that Fuel Hunt is will raise that man to be
Yep.
someone
Yep.
who doesn't come with excuses, someone who comes to work, someone who doesn't feel
Yeah.
entitled, someone who can give as much as they can. That is what the goal is.
Yeah.
That is the standard. Like I want my girls to see all these things so that they value those things. Not so that
Yep.
they go find that person, but in valuing those things, they will find that right person.
Like attracts like, So, like, they value it, but they also they exude it. And then that attracts the same, like attracts like. And before we go any further, I know we're a little ways in. Like, I wanted to underscore what you said. I am not perfect. You know what I mean? As a husband, as a father, as a leader, I'm not perfect. I fall into what I call the gap between knowing and doing. I fall in that
Yeah,
gap and I fail just as much, probably way more than the average person, but actively on a daily basis, I'm trying to jump that gap. Like I know what I need to do and I'm trying to do it. I'm trying not to fall in that gap. So, I can tell you a lot about what I do right today. You know what I mean? As a girl dad. But there's a lot of wrong I do too. Do I instill great lessons? Yes, but just like my daughters, it takes me multiple times to learn how to instill that lesson.
Yeah.
To regulate my emotions, to find the right words, to find the right timing, right? To include my wife in that lesson
Yeah.
as well. Like, so we're a united front, and we're instilling the lesson together and not just get caught up in like, well, I'm a girl dad and, like I'm going at this alone. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
making sure that we're together and instilling those lessons. So I wanted to mention that you mentioned it and I wanted to underscore it that like, I'm not perfect either. And that's why it's so important to do what we're doing now. Get together as girl dads and like chop it up and
Yeah.
learn from each other. And that's why I really love what you guys are doing too.
Yeah. You kind of jumped the gun a little bit on me, Joey, because it kind of goes into my next question for you because if we kind of look at you, we see the merch, we see the apparel, we hear the mantras, everything I think appears hard and not in a bad way, just hard. Like when people are judging something, it looks edgy, it's
Mhm.
tough, it's challenging. But I think my question for you is I know you're not that way all the time with those two pretty little girls that you showed me.
Nah.
So, what is the thing that softens you? Like what are those moments with them? And I think that's what viewers and listeners want to hear on the other
Yeah.
side of the girl dad, right? Is it baking with them? Is it for me it's like playing dress up and doing all the things? Is it watching the movie? Like what is that thing with you and your girls?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of them. We
Yeah.
have a lot of them. I think, like, my favorite thing to do with them is the daddy-daughter day, which I talk a lot about because it's not just like we go and do something, we participate together in planning what we're gonna do, and it's like a full day, bro. Like, we'll get up at 6 or 7 in the morning, and then we don't quit until, like, 9 p.m. at night. It's like a full day, and we jam-pack everything in there. Everything. We're fishing, we're scootering, we're going to the museum, um, we're cooking, we're straightening up, doing some housework, cleaning around the house. Like, it ain't all fun. We'll do some of that in there too, you know what I mean? Like, they're my favorite times. If they're That's kinda like at the macro level. At the micro level, what softens me up, the hand holding,
Yeah.
the hugs. When you come in after a hard day and they're just there, and even if they're engrossed in something like their homework or Legos or whatever, and they're just like, "Hey, daddy," they just turn around, they look, they give you the smile, immediately it melts you.
Yeah.
And, I don't know about you guys, but I've never had that type of joy on demand.
Mhm.
I
Right.
am I'm a very I'm a very intense person, as you can probably I say this like, "Oh, I'm intense," and everybody's like, "Nah, dude, you're like chill, you're like cool, everything's good." I'm an intense dude. Like if you spend like my wife will tell you, I'm intense. I'm stoic. I can be difficult at times, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how I've lived my life. Very serious. That's how I've always been. You know, don't get excited about things until like 10 minutes before them type thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah. But since I've had my daughters, like I have actual, like, joy and fulfillment, like, on demand. I can't even explain it. It's a look, a glance, a simple, like, reach back to hold your hand or a hug, like, those are the moments that really, like, melt me, man. They really melt me, and they keep me going. Entrepreneurship is hard as yous are, figuring out, and, at Fuel On, we have very difficult days sometimes, but I know I can come home, I can let the armor fall off,
Yes.
and shout out Bedros because that's a visualization that he imparted on me. Like, after you park the car and you get out of the car and you're walking up your steps to walk in your house, you have to visualize the armor falling off of you,
Mhm.
That's great.
you know, so that you can walk into your home and be open and vulnerable and like soft, like you were saying, for your wife and your children.
Yeah. Yeah, because the imagery of soft, I think, has kind of been hijacked from men. And this is where I come in because I want to be this soft spot for my family. I can be intense too, when we need to get down to business. But for my girls, I want them to always know that even after the discipline, even after me coaching them through what to do, that daddy is a soft place to land. I'm always going to
Yep.
be this soft place where you can come, and I'm never going to be too hard for you. You're never going to be too old to sit in my lap. I'm never going to be too old for you to just give me just a random hug, and I'm not going to push you away. And but I think
Mhm.
men after a time, and that's why I think I'm talking about I time capsule my kids, but I see so many men after a time, they're like, no, no, she's too old for that. And I was reading this book, and I'll never forget this quote, and maybe this is why it stuck with me. It's that dads push our daughters off of our laps so early that they're still looking for a lap to sit in. And so that's why they run to these men. They run to all these different men because
Correct.
you have, as a father, you've pushed them out of your lap too early, you know?
Absolutely. What I believe most girl dads don't understand is just that. They need to be in your lap later.
Yes.
Almost more than they need it sooner, earlier in their lives, because later on, the world has a hold of them, and
Ooh, good.
the world listen, the world can be cold,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I'm not this isn't coming from a place of, like, a victim mentality or anything,
No.
this is just real life. The world can be cold,
Yeah.
and they need that place reserved for them much later on in life.
You're right.
And I see dads do that all the time, and it never made sense to me, you know. And I think it's just like working from an old manual, the manual that they got handed to them from their father or lack thereof. For me, my father, biological father didn't hand me a manual. He wasn't around.
Hmm.
My stepfather handed me a good one, and I am dedicated to make sure that I make it even better. And I'm gonna hand that to my girls, and they're gonna hand it on too,
Yeah.
you know? But that's one of those missing pieces from the manual. It's like, ah, I like that term time capsule, like you were saying, like, "Ah, well, my daughter's at a certain age now." It's like she needs to be handled differently.
Mm.
It's like, yes and no. Like, you stop loving them, you stop being a shelter for them when you need that when they need it. It doesn't make any sense.
That's an important point. The needing it later but different is
Yeah,
not necessarily what you said, Brandon, like, oh, they're grown, so now it's weird. That should not be what that is, right? It's
Exactly.
when they're younger, one, they're easier to pick up, right? Like,
yeah.
come here, let me give you a hug, let me show you I love you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But showing them that later is more on their terms, but it's more meeting them where they're at now, right? Where, like I said, the little one, you just pick up, do what you need to do, and show them as much as you can to that you love them. But with the older ones, like I have a 12-year-old, and I'm starting to traverse through areas where I have a hard time with what you said, Joey. Like I have a hard time walking the line of being harsh and being the soft spot to land in, which sounds opposite, but I want to be the center, right? Because dude, I didn't grow up the way they're growing up, right? And that's on purpose. Like I want them to, one, have a better life, two, have a better me. But the world is out to get whoever doesn't want to defend themselves, whoever doesn't want to play that game. That's it. But the weak do fall. It happens. I always tell my daughters, like, be the warrior in the garden, not the gardener in the war. Make sure that the world doesn't eat you up. But I do that many times in a harsh manner. Don't worry about that. Don't do that. That doesn't matter. The world's gonna eat you up if you do this. It's like that is not the way to go about that, right? And I find that I'm learning from you two gents right now. Like I'm missing some of that, and I try to show them how much I appreciate and love their mother because I want them to see that as well. But at the same time, like because I think I want them to be strong, independent, hard girls, I start to maybe even too
Yeah.
early start to like be hard on them.
Yeah. I mean, so the only way I can sit here and speak the way I'm speaking is because I made the mistakes.
Mm.
I was just talking to Shane. You spoke to Shane. Hopefully, you're going to have him on the show. Shane Burgos, a friend of mine. I was speaking to him last week, and we both agreed that we grew up specifically with our first daughter, right? Like I had to grow into this person that I am now
Yep.
at the expense of my oldest daughter's few early years because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. There's three types of parents, right? There's a helicopter parent, there's a drill sergeant parent, and there's a consultant parent, right? I was never a helicopter parent. That is not me. I'm like, fruit's moldy, eat it. You want to go 1,000 miles an hour on your scooter? Do it. You want to walk around the block by yourself? Go for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a helicopter parent, but I was guilty of being a drill sergeant parent with my oldest daughter in her first couple of years. Don't do this, don't do that. If you do this, this is what's going to happen. There were a lot of do's and don'ts and a lot of consequences without a lot of love and empathy wrapped around. I wasn't like yelling at her. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like when I say drill sergeant, you know what I mean? Of course, sometimes I did yell, but there were more commands than there was consulting. Now I consider myself a consultant. You know, I might have the answer to your problem, but I'm not going to steal your problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to help you think through it. We're going to talk about it, right? We're going to talk about what might happen if you make the decision you want to make.
Right.
And if the price tag of failure is low enough for the decision you want to make, I'm
Yeah.
even going to let you make it.
Yeah.
Report back. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm in that consultant role. And I find that actually strengthens the relationship. Everybody's like, oh, you're one of those parents. Like, you give your kid choices. I'm like, damn right I do.
Yeah.
And I let them choose the wrong one. That's why it's not soft. Because, like, literally, I'll let them literally bust their face. Like, to the point where almost they got to go to the hospital because they going too fast on the scooter. Hey, you think this is a good idea? There's cracks up ahead. I got this. Okay. If the price tag's low enough, I'll let them fail. That's how I roll. But I was definitely guilty of being a little too harsh, like you were maybe saying. One other point I just wanted to hit real quick. Like I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and this sounds a little probably too realist for most people, but it's almost biblical. There is a law of the universe, and it's all good will be attacked. It's just how it is, right? You plant, right? Your vegetables, your fruits, your flowers grow. What's the first thing that happens? The insects come to attack it. The rabbits come to eat the tops off them. All good that is grown will be attacked at some point. So, damn right. We're doing the best to grow our daughters, and they have to be strong enough to withstand those attacks of the world.
One thing you hit, and I've said this in the podcast before, and this week specifically, I've been thinking a lot about this because the video's been kind of circling a little bit. And I said something to the tune of like, your oldest is in service of their siblings without ever having chosen to be in service of the siblings. And I've said that in the podcast, and I truly believe that because I treat their siblings different because I've learned through her, right? I've learned through my oldest. But one thing that's been really like almost bothering me is that I didn't say it in that video, and it's that she's also inadvertently been in service to me as a growing father, and that's the one, man, that's the one that like hits me in the heart because like I'm glad that her siblings have a better dad because of her.
Yep.
But I hate that I made so many mistakes with her. You know what I'm saying? And so that's something that I hope to find a way to give her credit for because I'm who I am because I've learned to be who I am through her. And you said, Joey, in the early years, brother, I think I'm doing it every single time, right? Like there's things that I get after her that I'm like, I probably shouldn't have done that. Odds are I'm not gonna get out to my middle, and I'm probably not gonna get out to the youngest because I've realized in that very moment that I just made a mistake, did a withdrawal from our dad capital in that to her. It's hard to put that back. So that's been one thing, man. Like you kind of hit me through a dart there, Joey. Like it really got me because I've said that before in this week, and I can't tell you exactly what triggered that thought process. I have started writing again, landing on my journal, so it may have been just that thought process
Yeah.
going through. But dude, it's been digging at me that she never chose to teach me how to be a father,
Yeah.
and I've made just a tremendous amount of mistakes with her
Yep.
for the benefit of her sibling. It's just crazy to me that she didn't have that choice.
Yeah. The oldest has quite the responsibility, and they don't know it. And
They
that
don't.
responsibility to start as soon as the second kid pops out, that responsibility starts, and they don't realize it. One of the things that I do, and trust me, do I still am I completely emotionally regulated all the time with my kids? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, do I
Wait,
raise my voice? Yes. All the,
wait.
you know what I mean, dude? I
Let me
I
meet
I
that
ain't
dad.
perfect,
Let
bro.
me meet that dad. Let him bottle it up and
Yeah.
sell it if he's always emotionally regulated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
whoever that person is,
No, it's the truth.
sell it. I don't know who
Yeah.
you are.
It's the truth. Yeah. But like, those little bits, dude, put them in a jar and sell them. You're exactly right. One thing, that I will say though is like with my oldest now, she's younger than your oldest, right? But my Everly is a very, very mature 7-year-old. Like I said, I grew up fast as a kid, and I started doing that to her.
Mm.
And I'd take my foot off the gas because like if I would have kept it up, like man, it wouldn't have been good. But like I took my foot off the gas just early enough that it actually benefited her. She's very mature. So I sit down, in some moments with her and I thank her. I tell her just that. I'm like, look, like you are not only a great big sister, but you're the best. I tell her, like, you're my best girl. I tell her all the time because you're helping me be better.
Yeah.
Like I just straight up tell her, and she gets it because she's mature. She doesn't get it fully, but
Yeah. Yeah.
she gets like the 1% better every day thing. So that like clicks with her. But I thank her straight up. I just tell her like, look, I like if she says, oh, that's really cool, that, and I'm like, hey, here's a story. The reason
Yeah.
I know it is because I had to learn it when you were little. So thank
Right.
you. You're the
Yeah.
reason I know. So I try to thank her as much as I can.
Yeah.
Because she didn't choose it, but boy, did she do a service, to me and my wife and my younger daughter.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, yeah,
And we've talked about this before. To a fault, I don't really show too much of my internal emotion to my girls. But when I have that conversation with my daughter, it almost brings me to tears every single time because
yeah.
I don't think I'll ever have enough apology for some of the things that like I know I could have done way better in hindsight. Like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, dude, I could have done that. I shouldn't have done this. I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's
I could write a book on saying like I should have not done all these things and I should have done this instead.
wow.
But
I
what
mean,
I
it's
will push back on you on Oscar, and this is just outside looking in, and I only see snapshots of life, but it says a lot because I still see your oldest willing to sit in your lap. She's still vying for that position. Every time I see her, every time you're interacting, she's still like daddy and in your lap, head and chest, hugging you. And that speaks volumes. That speaks over all of the mistakes, over all the missteps, over all the things.
Mhm.
Because if it had made such an effect on her, I know that
Abs-
interaction wouldn't happen.
and
Interaction wouldn't happen.
that's a great
You're doing
that's a
something.
great point. Yeah, that's a great point, man. I think as men, we take our duty seriously, and we're critical on ourselves. You know what I mean? You're not the only guy here and the only guy listening that could write the coulda, shoulda, woulda book, man. We all absolutely could, man. We all absolutely could. Yeah, I do at night, like tucking in my girls is something I try to do each and every night, unless I'm not home, right? And I do like a tuck in talk thing,
Damn.
right? Where like at night before bed, after they're done jujitsu on each other, wrestling, jumping off the clothesline themselves off the top rope, um, it's pretty calm, right? So I do tuck and talk, and the waters are calm, and the brains are spongy, you
Yeah.
know? So I take time in those moments to do things like say, hey, look, like, thank you for teaching me this or that. Or sometimes, like, I've learned, when I have to be harsh, sometimes in the moment, which, depending on the parenting book that you read, tell you not to do this, but I'll walk away. I'll
Mm,
just say, hey, look, we're going to talk about this later. And I'll just walk away because if I get emotional, I put them in fight or flight. And when they're in fight or flight, they're not going to learn,
mm,
No, yeah.
right? Like they have to, in fight or flight, the last thing that they want to do is learn a lesson. So I just say, I'm going to skip fight or flight. We'll talk at tuck and talk later. So sometimes it's all love, like you've done so much for me, you're too young to even understand. And other times it's like, hey, like let's talk about that thing that happened earlier, in a calm way and just, make a lesson out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, we all could write the coulda, shoulda, woulda manual.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Absolutely. Especially
But
with that oldest. I think there because you're learning and there are just so many missteps and you look back and you're like, what was I doing? What the hell was I doing? What
yeah,
like
I know.
why was this so important or why wasn't this? And for me, I felt like I was a pretty present dad. I was involved in all the things and doing and it's still like, man, I feel like there were some missteps that I made
Mhm.
with my first that I am truly apologetic for. Like I really do see her forgiveness because I'm not that way with her sister. And I don't even know if she can feel that or see that, but yeah, that shoulda, woulda, coulda book. I mean, if we wanted to write it or read it all the time, we wouldn't even get out of bed. So I just
right,
there you
right.
Exactly.
yeah.
That's that tricky thing of like, learning from the past, living in the present, just glancing towards the future type thing.
Yeah.
You know, because if you live in the past, you're screwed. You know what I mean? If you're if you completely let go of the past, don't learn from it, and then you're like 100% in the present, you're not glancing towards the future, you're kind of screwed. Like, so it's that balance between the learning and then the living, and then it's that glance towards the future type thing that
Yeah.
keeps you from being in bed all day reading the coulda, woulda, shoulda book.
But speaking about the future, Joey, you do something for your girls that I find super interesting, man. And please correct me if I'm wrong. It is towards the future. So explain what that is to us.
Yeah, so I started off, this is one of those things, like, talking about the coulda, shoulda, woulda book, like, I wish I started it sooner with my first. I started it a little late in her life once I had, like, my awakening, that I was, like, doing all the things, and I was there, and I was, like, a pretty good dad, but was I really there?
Yeah.
Right.
And when I had that awakening, you know what I mean? Like, I need to start really doubling down on being a dad. So one of the things that I do is I created 2 email accounts for them, right? So they have their own domain, their own .com, which I won't say
Right.
here. I don't want people sending emails to them.
Right.
Yeah,
You
of
know what I
course.
mean? Not
Right.
that any of your listeners would do anything nefarious, but
Right.
this is going to be out on the interwebs, so you
Right.
Hey,
never know.
Right. Right.
we're girl dads. We
Right.
we
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, you get it, right? Yeah, you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
So, so they have their own .com. They have 2 email boxes there, and I started out by sending them emails and attaching photos and things. Now I send more videos and audio messages to those inboxes, and then I'm going to give them access to those inboxes when the time is right. So maybe it's 18, maybe it's 21, maybe it's a little sooner in life, depending on how things go. I really don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Could it be 16? I don't know, but I'm just focused on filling up those inboxes. I put a lot of pressure on myself in the beginning of it to always be like teaching them something in every email I sent. And I'm like, okay, like what lesson am I going to teach them today or this week? And I got to tell a powerful story so that they get this lesson. And it was just a lot of pressure. And now more what I do is I recap the good and the ugly, both in voice messages. And I talk about the love that we have for each other, the time we spend together, what we do, what we've learned, what I've done, what I've done not so well in some moments. And I attach a lot of photos of daddy daughter days, and I'll take pictures I take them out to a restaurant or something. I take a picture of the receipt and like send that up there too. Just like like a time capsule
Yeah.
for them,
Yes.
you
That's
know,
exactly
but
what I'm
but it's a
You have a digital
digital
time
one.
capsule. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
And again, like I am not perfect. Like I set out to do this every single day, and I miss days. But I'm in a pretty good habit of when I drive into HQ in the morning, I will record a voice note for them, sometimes on the drive home too, but definitely when I go in, and I treat that kind of as like my gratitude exercise.
Mm.
A lot of people have journals, some people, different gratitude exercises that people do. I find that me writing down like what I'm grateful for, which I've done in the past, it doesn't hit as hard as me having to speak to my daughters about the time we're spending together, potentially what I'm grateful for, because that makes it like really real
Mm.
for me. So it's like a little selfishly, it's also like a little bit of a gratitude exercise, but makes me better for everybody when I do it. So yeah, so I'd highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it.
When did you start this?
Oh man,
Ish.
probably 2018, maybe
Okay. Have
something like
you
that.
gone
Yeah.
back and watched any of that?
No, no. All the emails are unread. Of course, the videos and the audio messages and stuff like that that I upload, like
Yeah.
I have OneDrive, so I'll upload them from my phone. So they're on my phone. So
Right, right,
like
right.
I'm a big like voice memo guy. Like it's always running. Like if I have something for Fuel Hunt or I have something for them, it's always running. So yes, am I guilty of sometimes, like looking for something in my voice memos and then I find one I sent to them and I listen to it. Like, yeah, I'm guilty of that. But I haven't actually logged into their email accounts and looked back. No, no.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, no.
I think that's super intentional, man. And that's one of the things that Brandon and I talk about a lot is
Yeah, yeah.
intentionality and presence. And that's a very present thing to do because I'm always the dude that takes it to this direction, right? But God forbid something happens, right? And now they have something from you. Like they have something,
Mhm,
I credit our podcast and Blandon with this because my job every so often makes it a little dangerous to be around,
mhm,
right? So uh if they can have this, if they can have some of that thought process that like maybe allows them to understand how much love I have for my girls,
mhm.
I mean, that to me alone is gold, right? It's
Yeah.
gold in the bank. But that is super intentional, brother. That is to a whole nother level of intentionality that we could all take note of. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say
yeah.
that's like next level dadding right there. That
For
is
sure.
Yeah.
next level legacy leaving, right? Because so
Yeah.
often, people just have like that last voicemail. They're holding on to that. And
Mhm.
but this is you have saw so far into the future for them about loving them, though. You know what I'm saying? And what that will do to them. What kind of
Mhm.
effect that will have on how they see love and affection and care and intentionality.
Yeah, I think it's like for me, like I really hope that they learn some lessons from the emails and the voice memos and things like that. And I really hope that they see all the fun we had together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I really hope they see that. But first and foremost, I hope that they realize like the time and the consistency that was put into my relationship with them. I know I want them to seek that out, not just in a man one day when they get married or whatever, but in everything that they do.
Yeah.
I want them to understand the value of investment in relationships and consistently showing up for somebody.
That's
Yeah.
that's huge, dude. That's a big deal. And it's one thing. It kind of leads me to one of our final questions here. At least for me, like
Mhm.
you know, 2016, you and your cousin started your company. Obviously worked the heck out of that, but you were working a full-time job. Drew was working a
Mhm.
full-time job, and you were starting to work if you want, huh? And you want to spend time with your girls, and you're doing it for your girls. So how talk to me, talk to us a little bit about how that came to play. I mean, you're a successful entrepreneur, you're teaching and you're mentoring others to be successful entrepreneurs. Like, and we don't want any of that BS 50-50 life balance because Joey, I heard you talk about this in another podcast. Blandon and I talk about this all the time. That doesn't exist. There's never a 50-50 shot of life work balance, whatever, because you have these things that you want to get done and you want to spend time with your girls. which is something like I made a note on the voice notes and the emails because that is so intentional. Not only are they hearing you, but you're talking to them. My
Yep.
girls may listen to this, but I'm not talking specifically to them. Hopefully they feel that I am, but I'm
There you
not,
go.
right? But I bring the emails and the notes to the same question because with that, some of that time that they're missing with you because you're busy, because you were so busy, it's going to get captured in those moments, right? Because
Mhm.
we've learned now that it's not necessarily the quantity of time as opposed to the quality of time that you're spending.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you guys have heard it over and over again. Like we say it on the Fuel Hunt show all the time. Like everything sounds cliche until it doesn't. Like
Right.
until it really
Right.
shows up in your life, right? Then you're like, ah, now I understand this cliche. I think that balance is a myth, man. I don't think balance exists. Like a 50-50 thing, it doesn't exist. Think about a guy walking a tightrope. You know what I mean? There's flex. He's like almost falling off. Then he's
Yeah.
recovering. Then he's
Mhm.
is not an even like balance. He's just
Right.
walking across it. So it is very much a mix. I mentioned it at the beginning of your show. Like for me, it's addition by subtraction. Like, how did I get all that done? I stopped doing other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point blank period. And some of those things I really love. I'm a sports fan. I had season tickets to the Flyers for multiple seasons. I stopped. I haven't watched sports and I go to a baseball game with the girls. But other than that, like sitting there, I stopped watching sports. I don't watch the news. I don't drink. I don't go out with the homies. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that I don't do that I've subtracted from my life to make the appropriate intentional space for the things that I care about. My family, if you want, and jujitsu.
Yeah.
And jujitsu makes the list because jujitsu makes me a better family man and a better businessman.
Yeah.
That's why that's on the list. The early days were rough, bro. Like even when I was working a full-time job, like I am who I am, my DNA. Like I was a hard worker. So I was killing it. I wasn't working a 40-hour week. I was working a 70, 80-hour week
Yeah.
with an infant and a budding side hustle in Fuel Hunt.
Right.
And at that point, we were a few years into marriage. So a new marriage, really.
Cool.
Did I wake up one day and say, like, okay, I'm stopping all these things and I'm just making space for these things I care about? No, it was gradual progression. I made a lot of mistakes. And then I realized, okay, this got to go. Like thinking, like when I glance into the future and seeing the life that I want for my family and myself and those that I love, some things just weren't in the picture. Me taking my daughters to the beach, coming back, cooking for them, hanging out at the beach house, making memories. The TV wasn't on. Like the Flyers didn't matter, you know, out the door. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Was I, when I bring them back to the house and I'm cooking dinner and their friends are there and all this other stuff, am I drunk? No.
Right.
Alcohol out of the mix. Were any of my homies there? I love my homies to death. They've been there. We've been through thick and thin together. But were they there? No, they weren't there either. So I had to curb some of my time with them
Mhm.
to make space. So it's really a mix. And I live and die by my calendar, but I'm very intentional with blocking time. Am I perfect every day with it? No. From 4:30 to 7:30 every day, that's my family time. And that's just that. And Fuel Hunt Jiu-Jitsu, I have to wait during that time. And really, man, as I grow as a man and as a businessman, I want to expand that block of time.
Right.
That's what it's about for me. Everybody's, oh, you buy back your time so you can do all this stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to buy back my time so I can increase that family time block. That's
Mhm.
what I want. And then once it gets wide enough that I'm happy, then I'll spend more time on jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But it's a mix, man. It's a mix. Balance doesn't exist.
Well, and I think it's important to point that that maturation process is super important because when I hear dudes, dads complain about the dad part, is because all those other little aspects we haven't let go of,
Mhm. Yep.
right? I want to go to the baseball game. I want to go to with my buddies. I want to, and now I can't because I had to do these things with the kids. Like I can tell you, I've been guilty of that
Mhm.
early on. But man, when I realized it was like an easy flip. Like
Yep.
actually, I'm getting upset at work because I'm still here and I
Yep.
want to be home. But you're right. It doesn't happen overnight. And as soon as fathers realize like the important part of not only your job as a father of your daughters, but the immense gratification you're going to get from switching those roles.
Yeah.
That for me, that's what it was, right? Like as soon as I realized, like actually, I kind of like this grind way better than that grind, you
Yeah.
know? And it's a
You
grind.
realize.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You realize what fulfillment really is.
for
You know,
sure.
like I had a lot of holes in myself that I was trying to fill with things
Yeah,
that didn't really fulfill me. Good things and bad things over the years. They didn't really fulfill me, and I realized it's because I didn't really know what fulfillment was.
Mm,
But then once I had daughters, then I talked about that like on demand joy earlier. Like that's how I describe fulfillment, right? Like I realized what fulfillment was, and that helped me flip that switch. But man, that's why this is such an important conversation to have, and the conversation that you have on your show all the time. This one to help dads mature faster.
yeah,
And I know that sounds wild, but as men, we live a certain way,
yeah,
and then it takes us time to transition
yeah.
to what matters.
yeah.
And we need to shorten that length of time for men so that they can realize what's on the other side and they can be of service not only to their families but society,
Yeah,
you know?
the phenomenon you're talking about is called delayed adolescence. And
Mm,
that is what is plaguing most men. And it it happens because we're told that we can have this forever. We can have this feeling of youth forever. And we live in a youth obsessed culture that does not value middle age, that does not value the sage advice of the grandfather anymore. So we delay adolescence for a long period of time, and we want to live a certain way for a long period of time. And yeah, no, you,
yeah.
Joey, like this conversation probably could go on till forever. I'm
Yeah.
that locked in at this moment, and I'm not cutting it short. I'm just saying this is all for real. I just feel like I'm sitting at the feet of a guru right now who is
For sure.
teaching me about myself and how I can show it better for my daughters. Addition by way of subtraction, that's genius right there. That's awesome. And then not stealing her problems from her. Like I always steal my daughter's problems from them because
Yeah.
I want them to have a better life. And so things that you're saying, like right there, I am just like taking these as jewels and I'm putting them away. I'm just letting you know I'm stealing them now. So if you hear them
Yeah.
again, I'm gonna credit you, but I'm just letting you know in advance I'm stealing them. But
Please,
yeah,
please
yeah,
pass them on, man. Pass them on. Like I said in the beginning, might have been pre-show, man. I've taken a lot of lumps
yeah,
and I've given a lot of lumps. I've failed myself. I've failed other people. These are all lessons I've learned, and I appreciate the forum to speak on them because I want other people to learn them sooner. And even though I'm a hard work guy, I want them to learn them easier than I did.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, listen, I echo what Landon just said. We could sit here for, I could sit here for another 2 hours
I
and
definitely
just absorb a lot of this information, man. We're not going to do that to you today, but hopefully we can get you on the hook for the next time and we can sit down and rock some of this information out and rock some of this,
yeah.
just this goodness that I believe we're putting out, man. Because, like you said, if we can help men get there faster, whatever there is, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't know, everybody's different, but
Yep.
if we can get them to help to get there faster, um, I think we're gonna do a lot of good. And so, Joey, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time from your girls, from the business, from jiu-jitsu to sit down with us today, man, and have these conversations with us. For everyone out there, fuelhunt.com is the golden place. I promise you, Blandon can now attest to it now that he's searched for it himself.
now that I've done the research that
No,
my
you're good.
good buddy wouldn't give it to me, but that's all right because it was worth it. It was worth the research.
It was purposeful, sir. But no, truthfully, man, you can't wear because of what you and Drew have created. You can't wear the apparel without working towards what that apparel means. And so I think that's super important. We didn't. If I could show you my book, man, like I got like we got like notes for days, questions. Like I
I
said,
mean, look,
hopefully we'll get you back on here. But
we'll we'll run it back, dude. We'll do a part two. If you got a closing question, hit me with it. Like, my time is yours. I know you got probably a length that you want to subscribe to for your listeners. I'm here with you guys. Like I said, I want you to win. So however I can be best of service.
man, you're the best, man. I'm not gonna take more of your time today. I want you to at least have some time with your wife too, because your daughters are hopefully down and chilling. Let us know how we can get a hold of you. Obviously, freewillhunt.com is primary. It probably has a lot of information in there already, but let our followers and our listeners know where they can find Joey on the socials, if you will.
Yep. So I am at Joey Digital on Instagram. Not too active on any other platform other than Instagram. So Joey Digital there, and the Fuel Hunt community, you can find them also on Instagram, our most active place at Fuel Hunt.
And for all y'all that are interested, Fuel Hunt Rise is the community that Joey has discussed with us a little bit. The community that Blandon has been inducted to until he pulls the trigger, and I'll help him do that. I won't gatekeep there.
Don't gatekeep there, man. Come on.
Come on. But it's important for everyone out there listening, check that out, because the reason this podcast is here is literally the Rise community. It is the reason why Blandon and I pulled the trigger on everything we've been doing, on starting our company, because Joey inadvertently said, get up and go do this. And we're here.
Greatness awaits. You guys are already doing an amazing job. This is hands down one of my favorite shows I've ever done. You're already doing an amazing job, but greatness awaits for the both of you. And I'm so pumped to see you walk the journey, and I can't wait to just hopefully meet you in person and shake both your hands when you get there.
We would love to go to HQ and do that, man. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, man.
Amen.
Well, with that, find Daughter Podcast on all the social media, literally at Daughter Podcast. If you have a question for us through email, it is conversations@daughterpodcast.com. I am Oscar. Blandon will put my social media handle on there because I am not the social media guy, and I can't even remember what it actually is right now, but he's gonna put it on there for you. Oscar over here and Blandon on the other side. Joey, once again, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being here with us, and we'll see y'all on the next one.